much. If I was nervous, now I am terrified after Lawrence's talk. But when you are terrified, then the best thing to do is to play a game. Okay? So here's a game that I want to play with you. There is a prize. It's really a very special prize. There are 10 questions. You judge yourselves, okay? And then if you get that last one right, and we have one winner, then you get the prize, okay? So at least you came here, you got a prize, or at least you stand a chance to get the prize. But I apologize, and because of hospitality, if you are from St. Mary's, then you would excuse yourself from this. You can play the game, but you will give up the prize to someone else. Okay? Ready? Okay, let's play this game. Okay? Now, your job is to name the brand. Okay? Let's start with the first one. Okay, so you'll know whether you actually got it right or whether you're listening to someone else, okay? Okay, good. Now, let's move faster. Okay, if you don't know, it is the new branding for Burger King. Okay. Next. This one's an old one. You'll show your age just like. Okay. I told you there are 10, right? Quick. This one easy. You probably use it, some of you, and pay ERP. Okay, you don't get it. Toyota. Next. You sure? SIA has changed their thing, but this is the old one. You right? Okay. Next one. No, it's not Apple. That means you're not an Apple fan, yeah. No? Okay. Samsung. You know what the original one? What was the original one when we were doing this? Do what you can. Okay. Which one you prefer? Imagine or do what you can? Okay. Next. Hey, you mentioned it earlier. Okay, number 8. New wine conference, no? The new one. Okay, so how many of you have got now 8 out of 10? You mean no one's going to get this prize? No one with 8 out of 10. Oh, susah. Okay. Number 9. Disneyland. Okay, you get this one right. Okay. You get the prize. Last one. This is the truth. Yeah, and that's why I said St. Mary's cannot. But any of you who are not from St. Mary's guessed it? No? So this is the challenge. So this is really how it all began. I came in and I felt that while we have mission statements, to know Christ, to love Christ, to serve Christ, etc., I felt that we needed to learn from these companies. Because in that one line, you could test yourself on whether or not you were arriving at where you want to be. And so I felt that this would be the tagline. And so I kind of composed it, shared it with the staff there. They looked at me and like, what in the world is this? And I said, it's very simple. If you want to know whether you are connecting, when that person leaves that conversation, you will know from their face whether they were glad they came. And this would be your feedback. Because one of the things I realized that we don't do is feedback. And we are very frightened to do this because that means a priest also will have to receive feedback. And the problem is that we don't give out the feedback forms with anything we do. And if we gave the feedback forms, we don't know what to do with it, and in the end we do, and then we don't act on it. So I decided this will be the feedback. So I said that we'll be a person who would use this. And if we were to do this, Patrick, please go. I don't know what is going to come next. I tell you that honestly, when I was asked to speak here, I was surprised. I was actually challenged by this conference, Jarvis, so obviously I'm a churchy person, But I was also comforted. Surprised, really, because this might be shocking to some of you. I have absolutely zero parish experience. Many people might not know this. I have never worked in a parish. I've never been an assistant parish priest. I have zero parish experience. I have school experience. I worked outside. I've been in administration, but in a parish, zero. I was challenged because I feel the title, The Welcoming Parish, is an aspiration rather than a reality. I don't think St. Mary's is the welcoming parish. I think it's an aspiration to try to be the welcoming parish. But I'm comforted because, as what you said, anyone who has worked with me, I think they have been crucified 3 times. Honestly, and I think Jarvis knows the truth that anything that is planned is then shredded and a new thing comes about. And it's very difficult to work with me. And I really feel this is the reward for the whole team, not just me. The flip side, however, about this is that because I had zero work experience, I didn't have a template. When I first came in the parish, before it was closed, everyone, when I met the parishioners, I just wanted to know whether I will be having communion in 2 species or not. Because St. Mary's used to have communion in 2 species. And everyone wanted to sort of like feel that this is what I need to know. This is how we're going to do it, and I needed a briefing. I needed the orientation. And they were going to tell me how it's going to work. But because I didn't have any parish experience, everything was new for me. There was absolutely no idea what to expect because I was new to the people. They were new to me. They thought I was a visiting priest from India or something because I was in formation and I never used to hang around the parish. So the older parishioners will know who I was, but a lot of the parishioners didn't know who I was. So when the name came up, they were like, oh, who's he? And because I wasn't in my habit, so sometimes I'll be walking around and they won't know it's me. But I took that as something very positive because it meant I had a blank canvas. But of course, the parishioners wanted to teach me of how things are going to be done, and I was ready to learn. But God had a very strange sense of humor. Before I could get to know the parishioners, before they could get to know me, the zero was a real ground zero, because then after you remove the Chinese New Year and all that, it was ground zero. The gates were closed. I didn't know the parishioners. They didn't know me. I've never worked in a parish. I have no idea what's going to go on. And that's how I began. Now, I realize I'm just sharing with you what happened at St. Mary's. It might be very different for you, but this is what actually happened for me. And so I used to be so scared. I'll be honest with you. I sometimes don't want to get out of my room because I didn't know what to do. You have to realize that this is a friar who had other roles but never in a parish. And St. Mary's is a big parish where everyone kind of like had organized themselves. And I was going to go out there, and I really didn't know what to do. It was really this prayer that I prayed when I began, and I still do. It was the prayer that St. Francis prayed before the crucifix when he was asked to restore or rebuild the church. And he too didn't know what to do. So my consolation was my own founder. And I would actually be in my room and I'll pray this. And I think anyone who remembered, whenever we had to try new things, I would share with the people, I have no idea what's going to happen. And this would be the prayer. So from this prayer, I would like, because I don't know what's going to happen here as well, I'd like us all to pray this prayer and join me. Most High, glorious God, enlighten the darkness of my heart and give me true faith, certain hope, perfect charity, sense and knowledge that I may carry out your holy and true command. Amen. I think this brings us back to the call that St. Francis had to repair, restore the church. And I think something happened at the pandemic that required this. And that's why I felt I was at ground zero, but like St. Francis, I will just do stone by stone. And so what happened was this. I realized that it's very simple. The whole call was just to love one's neighbor. And while I might have complicated everything, while I first met the parishioners wanting to know what programs, what template, etc., actually this was the template. How do I express love for my neighbor in a way that my neighbor can experience it? And it is really the church's call, whether it be St. Benedict, whether it be St. Francis, it really goes back to Jesus Christ, whether you take the Sacred Heart. So I just said, if you're not glad and happy coming here, then there's no point coming. And that's what was happening. People were beginning to say, same lah, boring, no point, same homily, everything. So just as I was beginning to start, I shared with you that the gates closed. So this was really how it happened, that I'm glad I came. All the gates are closed. No point saying I'm glad I came because no one can go anywhere. So it became, I'm glad I tuned in. And really, this was it, because it came out of a need. I didn't know the parishioners. The parishioners didn't know me. February 14, I put out a message, and I didn't know what's going to happen on February 15. It was really that prayer. And I'm not lying to you. it was just one camera, me, and on February 14, I put out that message. I just tried to sort of like connect, and I felt I needed to love my neighbor, but they were all no longer coming to church. The gates were closed. And therefore, I realized that my neighbor was feeling frightened, stressed, disconnected. They were at number one, right? So the only thing to do was to begin to reach out to them that way. And so I didn't look at the parish as just a physical space. I hope that was not grave digging. It was actually going out to them. But this was something that I had to create with the team and with the rest of my brothers. And honestly, it was tough work. Because you couldn't reproduce the liturgy online exactly as it is. So we needed to come up with things like Holy Week at home. We needed to get people to come because I wanted them to connect to the parish. So come get your Holy Week kit. One palm, one candle, those sort of things. So that the kids will also then come and say, Mom, there's a kit for us to go and collect. And then people will come collect their Holy Week kit. For Lent, it was like, take a plant home. So come and collect a plant. And I was doing this really for the people to connect and me to connect with them. That here we'll work it together, but now you over there, me over here. And slowly people began to come in and help out. And that was how we began. The stage 2 was that when they were coming briefly, I decided that we need them to evangelize. So how did we do this? I'll welcome the 50 people, but the 50 people will then go out and say, hey, it was worth coming. How are you going to do that? So I decided no tapes, no ropes, none of those things, because you see that in the hawker centers, you see that in that, but church has to be different. So I refused, and that's why the people working with safe distancing found it very difficult to work with me, because I didn't want any of those do not cross tapes. I think if you were at St. Mary's, you never saw that. They told us to turn off the font, all water things to be shut off. And I said, no, it will be so depressing. How do you come to church and that? So my thing was that we will leave the font. If you know St. Mary's, there's a font right there. But I will cordon it off. Then I began to, and this was where I used to get the complaints. I was making the grounds safe. I was making the places where you'll encounter people away from that distress that they were experiencing. That here is where the one-to-one will happen. All these rooms were actually priest offices. So all the priests were all asked to vacate their offices. So there's no priest office at St. Mary's. No parish priest office, no assistant parish priest office. This was what I meant by, this was a Lenten thing, so we turned off the water. I just felt that for the 50, you'll see them sitting away, that if you came, it has to be different from what was happening in the kopitiams in that, because the space is sacred. And if these people came and said it was different, then they would go back and tell the people, it was very nice, it was very different. it was less stressful. That was learning. And so I created these things. And this moved the flower ministry into liturgical art. And every time there is change, so you see if you went back in that photo, you saw the people just 1 meter apart, etc. But you will see that the church never stopped in making sure it was a beautiful place that they were longing to come, to feel at home. It was their home. It was being looked after. And that was my way of loving neighbor, because this was their home. And I felt that I should convey that their parish priest and the parish team was looking after their home, making them long to come back home. And we tried to feature this in our online, and I think people were in tears when they saw the church that they loved, the home. And I remember one Easter vigil, we lit a candle at every pew. I mean, this was not new. I think some other countries put a face on every pew. And that was a way of saying that while it's Holy Week at home, it was here. What is the end product of all this? I was trying to kind of connect to the people at a time where we were disconnected. I think that was what I was trying to do. Did I know I was trying to do that? No, I didn't really know I was trying to do that. Was that God's Spirit? Yes. Could I do it by myself? No. But each of these things allowed small groups to come and reconnect and feel it was theirs. It meant that there were other ministries who now had to take a back seat and new people came up. Did we even have a projector? No. St. Mary's, I think, was one of the last churches, if not the second last, to even have a projector on the screen. But doing that allowed the digital ministry to come in. It's stage 2 that was difficult, but because we are so good at policing, that I decided that while we police and keep the 1 meter apart, we will also make it experiential. So our penitential services, etc., was experiences. You come, you take the charcoal, you dirty your hand, it was the incense. It was a new way. And that's why I have to thank the whole team, because it meant having 10 penitential services in the week, each time 2 hours, because only 50 people or 100 people could book. The problem is in stage 3. In stage 3, now we actually found that we had 2 churches. And it's very hard to close down. So everyone asked, it's time to close down the online thing. And no one has any more time to volunteer, because now even offices are open, etc. Close down or don't close down? My reason for keeping that online was because of what we learned from COVID. That homebound people, and I'm talking about the elderly, I'm talking about the sick, I'm not talking about those who choose not to come to church. That was their connection to the parish they love. That was the way they now were experiencing and knew what was going on. To close it down would be terrible. Because before this, it was only a communion minister who would go there, maybe once a week. But now they're tuning in. They're seeing the friars grow up. They're seeing the other people that they know. And they felt that there was someone who was reaching out to them. So don't close down. But everyone who was coming back now became the problem. Because now that they came back, they want it to go back to what it was. And this became the challenge because it can't go back to what it was. So, a simple thing, right? The wardens, we used to call them wardens, had their sash. When we went into safe distancing, we invited other people to volunteer because we got 10 services. St. Mary's is a huge parish. So there are people with sash and without sash. So remove the sash so that everyone just has a lanyard. Are the people with sashes happy? No. You used to have a ministry that does the liturgical space of the sanctuary, but now we needed to do the liturgical space of the whole place, because when you come in, that is also sacred space. It's how you welcome. And I noticed that that's what hotels do. That's what condominiums do. They make you welcome from the time you step in. So that is a change. Are people happy with change? No. So I realized that each stage was a challenge, and it seems as though you will not reach a place where it's completely clear. So this led to this, because I felt if we don't get new people in, if the people who have been in the ministries are not passing on some treasure, some wisdom to the people coming in, it would be a ticking bomb. We would be actually better in the COVID stage. Because the COVID stage meant you have to create. But now that you all come back, we all come back, and if we don't have a mindset that is also changing, then really we would be a tick, 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 boom, you know? And somehow or other, this led to this Pentecost. Now it's going to come to 1 year, and this was our Pentecost program. If you listen behind the lines, it was exactly what Lawrence was also saying. How many people here have been serving for this number of years? How many people have been serving for this number of years? And whether we are making room for other people to come in. Because sometimes it can be so comfortable to be in that role because you feel so important. And honestly, the priest needs you, because without you, the whole thing will be in chaos. But if we don't make that change, we might be actually holding a bomb. And so this was the thing. You might have seen it, but it comes with noise, yeah?
It's go, 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 go time. Tick, tick, boom.
I was just asked, what makes St. Mary's tick? And I can tell you what makes St. Mary's tick. From the time I entered, there was a boom. And that boom was that the gates were closed and no one was coming in. And what made St. Mary's tick is you. So many of you are the salt of the earth, the light of the world. That's making St. Mary's tick. Tick, tick, boom. If we were serving during the time of Friar Clifford, that would be about, we're 10 years older and 10 years in service, fantastic. If we were serving during the time of Friar John Paul, we're about 20 years in service. Tick, 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 boom. Now the question is, what's happening to the rest of us?
if we are not stepping up, we're not assisting our brothers and sisters, we're not assisting this parish with the boom of the Holy Spirit. We're ticking through. And I thank you for that. But this message is for you who have not been stepping up. This message is for us who are in that room, closed in, frightened, not sure. This is the call and the boom of Pentecost. Honestly, it is time for every ministry to kind of renew itself. But let's begin with a ministry that we all know has been truly deserving of our applause. They started as wardens, ensuring that our liturgies are run well. Then they moved and new people came in and they became safety ambassadors. And that's where it changed. Then we moved into that 1 meter apart, 5 to a row. Then it changed. And now we're in this holding pattern wondering what the boom is going to be. I tell you what the boom's going to be. The boom's going to be that St. Mary's will be noted as one of the most wonderful, hospitable, welcoming parishes. How is this going to happen? With renewal. Some of us might have to take that step back, allow others to come and lead. And in doing so, we need to be trained. Hospitality is a lot more than just finding a place or a seat in church. Hospitality is ensuring that we are safe. We as a church have to ensure that we have fire safety people, that we have community emergency response team, that we have parish emergency response team to make sure that everyone who is in these grounds feels safe. We have to move into the way we engage with the community. Interfaith and exposure to other faiths is such that our communities are coming over for tours, for understanding of religion and our places of worship. Just this week, we had 3 tours. Schools, interfaith groups, people from other parishes wanting to know what makes St. Mary's tick. One guy is leading this to us. Surely, would you be part of that tour group? We celebrate about 20 baptisms a month. Wonderful. Most marriages now are about interfaith couples. That question of how do you manage passing on the faith, you are the people who tick. You know the challenges when your children were young. And if they heard this, if they take courage from you, if you express how you struggled with this, they'll feel welcome. They will feel that here in the parish, people care for them. What about funerals? That very last journey that we make. Shouldn't that be one of the most blessed, beautiful journeys? At St. Mary's, we take great pains. But we have 1, 2 people. Surely we can build this up. We can train you. But if everyone came together, then it's not imposing on anyone because we're all coming together and no one is exhausted. And that is what Pentecost is. The whole community no longer ticking but pulsating. You hold the key to what boom is.
Tick, tick, boom.
Okay, so with that, I have to tell you that people began to sign up because they felt that there was an avenue for them to come in. The change was good. The people who were in these ministries were now had to welcome new people. And so from that one person leading the tour group became very, very popular. Now we got a whole team. They came up with a website, with an app. They were experimenting. They were now sharing that. Our sacramental ministry now began to expand. Our funeral that had only one guy, and sometimes when he's carrying the cross, I'm not too sure who's going to go first, Now has a whole team, and they began to, so that was the way we were moving into all this. And I think that was great. the problem I feel there, because I'm going to end, is that, remember we did SQ? And so SQ changed from a great way to fly. In fact, there was an intermediate, they did home. SQ was home. And now they moved into world class. But the problem with any tagline is that the minute you have a tagline, people will begin to critique you. And so they'll have any experience they have, oh, you call this world class. Right? And so that's why we are frightened of these taglines, right? You say you're a welcoming parish, then all the letters of complaints will come. And they'll quote you. But I felt that each time this happens is a learning time for us. And that is why I shudder or was very apprehensive when you asked me to come to share what happened at St. Mary's. Because what happened at St. Mary's is unique to St. Mary's, is unique to me. If I was a person who was an assistant parish priest, I'm not too sure whether all this would have taken place. But I think the Lord is just speaking to us where we are and taking us where we are, and that was what I learned. And it was just basically, how am I connecting to the world? And my experience out there in school with the Malay Cegus, with the atheists who will have, was the discussions I had to make me look at whether art is another way in which we can enter into faith. Because I felt if not, we would just be sticking to the same things. So my question for you is, if you had to choose a tagline for your parish, what would it be? And how would that then govern your hospitality? That is why I hope you are glad you came here. Although this is not St. Mary's, huh? Okay. God bless you. Thank you.